Hi, this is Chuck Sutherland with the Real Estate Expert Summit. Welcome to this hour's interview. In this case, we're having Jason Mittman. Jason is a longtime friend, but an extraordinary real estate man who has an extraordinary history and an extraordinary view of the future of real estate in the years ahead. So, Jason, welcome.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here, Chuck. I'm honored. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. So, Jason, I'd like you to share a little about how you got started in real estate to begin with. I just want to, before we get into me telling people who you are, just talk about where you started from.
Sure. I was cutting lawns and went to bid on this guy's yard, and we hit it off, and he honored me by being my mentor and taking me under his wing for over 8 years and taught me everything about real estate and helped me get my first 3 deals knocked out of the park, and was just a true amazing gift in my life.
Yeah, mentors are an amazing gift when they come along at the right time, particularly.
Absolutely.
So you got started. You really didn't know anything about real estate, but you were willing to work hard, right?
Yes.
And you're willing to work hard and willing to learn, and you did everything you needed to, everything that this guy told you to do, followed your mentor, and what were you able, let's talk about I want you to just tell us what you've done up to this beginning of this year, let's say, in terms of building a real estate business portfolio, a lifestyle. And I want to hear about the adventure and athlete part of it too. So this is I want your biography up to the beginning of this year.
Wow. Okay. In high school, I had a fortunate good luck of a neighbor who was a coach who helped me by teaching me triathlons. And in high school, I raced against this unknown kid named Lance Armstrong, who kicked my butt and kicked everyone else's butt. And in college, shifted to doing mountain biking and working real estate at that same time, working for Mr. Jory, which was amazing. And I'd go off and race. And eventually in 95, went to the World Championship finals in the mountain bike, trying to make the 96 Olympics. Didn't make it. Was very intimidated by those on the start line, but pushed and learned an awful lot in business and real estate from those years of pushing and training and preparing, and never underestimate and push and just set your fear aside. My view is kind of 50-50 in life at this point. Finally, it's used to be 95 business, 5 everything else, but 50 personal and 50 business. And part of that personal also was the years of adventure racing. I was on Team Vignette, and we had over 90 top 3 finishes overall, and I think 50 something first place. And we won the North American Championships. And again, a lot of those lessons apply in business. It's communication, problem solving, being prepared, taking advantage. And so there's always been that crossover that I've been very fortunate, and lately climbed big mountains. So went to Europe and did the Matterhorn and the Dufourspitz and the Mont Blanc, and climbed in South America. So all of those things I'm fortunate enough to do as an adult, only because of my success in real estate and the mentors and organizations like the Society of Exchange Counselors. That real estate is one of those beautiful things of, if you work really hard and put the effort in up front and maintain and properly manage, and you have ethics and honor, the real estate will keep performing. I'm off climbing a mountain for a month at a time. I'm still collecting rent. I don't think there's any other industry where, when you go do something else, if you're a very honorable profession, a lawyer or a doctor, you don't have billable hours unless you're working. Well, we do, because the asset's there. And if you've done a good job, it's going to perform as if you're there, even though you're on vacation, within reason. So that's kind of the blend of how I was able to merge those two wonderful aspects of my life.
All right. What would you say the deal that stands out to you as the one that you're most proud of today?
I would say there were two different deals. The first one that was my home run, which my mentor walked me through, was a building with an old bank building in Lockhart, Texas. And I had saved and saved and saved, and I had 40,000 to my name, and 40,000 was my earnest money. And it took me 2 years of calling this bank to get them to agree to sell it. 2 years, literally. And I just would not give up. And while I had it under contract, my goal was, I did these renderings, I was going to do a shopping center, and nobody was interested. No one. And I was calling and calling, and there were two banks that said, okay, we're interested. And I thought, okay, give up the shopping center, just do a bank deal. And so I said, great, let's do it. And neither of them knew I only had it under contract. They didn't know I didn't own it. And they both said, okay, great. How much do you want for it? I said, well, no, it's not for sale. I'm only leasing. I'm thinking, I can't sell it. I don't own it. Obviously, you learn things like in the organization we're part of, Society of Exchange Counselors, you don't need to own something to learn how to work it and get value out of it. And I called my mentor, and he said, well, call him back and ask him how much, but really push that you really don't want to sell. And then he goes, when you ask him, shut up. So I said, I'm really not interested in selling. I had it under contract for $400,000. This was 2006. So I was making money and doing deals, but nothing of great consequence. Is that right? Maybe it may have been earlier than that, actually. And they said $1.3 million. And Chuck, I almost dropped the phone. Remember, 400 under contract, $1.3 million. But I had practiced with my mentor and said, well, I really don't know. Let me think on it. I hung up the phone and I call him screaming, $900,000. I grew up with nothing. I mowed lawns, I raked leaves, I shoveled snow, I washed anything I could to be entrepreneurial. He said, okay, well, be cool. Sit on it for a couple days. And I'm in panic. I'm like, I have to call him back now. And he goes, no, that does the deal no good. You have to stay calm and emotionally neutral. So I did. And he called him. He called me the next day and said, don't call him 40. And I'm like, ah. So I call eventually, and I said, $1.3 million, I really don't want to sell. I can do $1.5 million. And they met me at $1.4 million. Remember, so that's $1 million. And I said, well, let me think on it. I'll need some pretty good hard earnest money up front, which again, all these I had learned over the years with Jory, and doing everything from fix and flip houses to just building and building and building slowly. Okay. So I understood the terminology and said, I need $40,000 non-refundable from day one. And they said, okay. And I'm thinking, holy crap. So I hang up, and then I'm trying to figure out, well, I have to buy it before I sell it. I didn't have $400,000. So I called another friend who I'd worked with because I was also doing leasing, and he was very honorable. And I called him and said, can I borrow $400,000? And I'm kind of like, and he goes, I was sure he was going to hang up. And that's the problem with so much of our business. We say in our head, we are so certain what the other side's going to say. And we're almost always wrong, especially when the market's either super hot or freaking out, on fire, panic, collapsing. And that doesn't help anybody. And said, well, he goes, tell me about it. And I told him, he goes, send me the contract. And I did. And he lent me $400,000 to get my first deal done. And 90 days later, after a bunch of due diligence, I sold it. And I was able, through learning about the 1031 exchange. Normally you can't do this, so I don't want to advocate this. Normally you need to hold a year, but the intention truly was a long-term hold. And we had mountains of literature to prove we had no intention of selling. We tried everything to not sell. So I was able to legitimately go through the process of a 1031 into another property, into two properties, and I just kept building it. And I never took out. I kept putting it back into the machine over and over, and just took out the bare minimum to live off of. So that transaction was pretty special.
Yeah, that's extraordinary. And fact is, I could, in case people didn't get the math, you became a millionaire overnight.
That's right. So here's how you can either say I was an overnight millionaire, or it only took me 20 years to become an overnight millionaire.
Oh, okay.
It takes a lot of hard work. And I mean, it took me 2 years of calling to convince them to sell.
That's awesome. So what I get out of that is perseverance. Don't freak out,
Yeah.
and believe you can do it. Don't stop.
Yeah. And build a network. I couldn't have done it without the mentor or without my friend who lent me the capital. It truly was incredible but a lot of, you have to have a lot of integrity and honesty. And it turns and comes back to you.
It does. It does. In fact, it'll turn both ways and come back to you. If anybody that's been around, particularly real estate long term, is that the people that are in real estate and they're dishonorable, your word, they end up not doing well.
That's right.
And the ones that build relationships with people and have a positive view of life and they're never back down from what they believe in, those people do well. And they'll do well in small markets, big markets, East Coast, West Coast, middle of New Mexico, the middle of, down in the middle of the panhandle of Oklahoma.
Right.
They'll do well.
Right. I think the third thing is that you have to surround yourself by me. You never want to be the smartest guy in the room. You're in the wrong room if you're the smartest guy. And I know I keep repeating this organization we're both part of, but I still go through tough times. We all do. And when I do, to have the people around you, like my friends in the Society of Exchange Counselors and other groups, they can uplift you. You can fix problems if you're willing to admit you have a problem, of course, and then figure out what the problem is and be honest and set your ego aside. You'll fix it with the right people.
With the right people, and there are people that really will help you as long as you say you're straightforward and honest, and you've built a relationship with them and the people that are around their network too.
Yeah.
Right. So this is how you became an overnight success, and then you continue to build from there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you're in a pretty good position now. I'm sure you're in development deals that you didn't anticipate we'd have a major pandemic that we'd be involved in. So what is let's talk about your view of the future right now, because that'll give some more questions. What's your view of what the future is likely to look like? And then what's the view of what your future inside of that is going to look like?
Yeah. My view of the future, so I think the name of the author is a guy named Grant Cardone, and he owns 3,000 or 4,000 doors of multifamily. Mm-hmm. And his quote is, "Never waste a good recession." Right? So my view is we're about to have amazing opportunity from one heck of a recession. Mm-hmm. I think that regardless who is president, you can only float $6 trillion for so long to pump up the economy until that float runs out. Courts will open back up, and that means both lenders and landlords and tenants are gonna have to figure something out as that money runs out. I think that the vast majority of people, unfortunately, are going to suffer, and we have to figure out a way to help them. And the not vast majority are going to be like Warren Buffett's rule of run in when everyone's running out, right? And as we discussed before, it's crazy. You don't go into buy a shirt and go, oh, great, it's 110% more than usual. And then when it's down to 50%, you go, I don't want that. Why would I buy that shirt? It's half off. I need to sell while everything's half off. Well, a lot of people think that way, and I think we'll be thinking that way sometime mid next year. I think around Q2 of 2021 will be when the money runs out, courts open up, and we'll start seeing the consequences. There are some industries that I think are really going to suffer. Hospitality, a majority, meaning more than 50% of hospitality loans are in some form of workout with the lenders.
Right now?
Yes, right now. Right now. There are many cities that are going to have to declare a government version of bankruptcy for the city, especially those that are tied to things like single purpose economies, like a college town, a small college town that relies heavily on students, and the students are virtually learning, and you've got the bars and the restaurants and the apartments. That town's going to be suffering too. So it's, what can you do to be honorable, to realize you do have an ethical obligation for profit, and at the same time not forget your ethical obligation to help others. And I think that's coming, and I think it's sometime mid next year.
Yeah.
And it does not matter who the president is, in my opinion.
And so if you look out at that, you've mentioned a couple industries and a couple kinds of locations. So one industry is hospitality, and another industry, actually another locale that you mentioned was small college towns, right? And maybe even mid-sized college towns. So what are some of the other product types of real estate that you expect are going to have a difficult time in the next couple years?
Retail that's heavily dependent upon soft good. So shoes, shirts, widgets, things that online retail was nipping away at and now has just kicked the butt of. For example, Amazon, you remember a couple of years ago, Chuck, when Amazon HQ2, and everybody's watching where HQ2 is and how it's, okay, what they didn't pay attention to is at the same time as Amazon rented hundreds, plural, of thousands of square feet, hundreds of thousands of square feet in the fashion district in New York. Nobody paid attention to that. And I mean to tell you, if you really want to be successful, read, and learn. Read things like Kiplinger's Tax Report and read all those things. Stop focusing on the sensationalism of day-to-day news, regardless of the media outlet. You can't control what they say. They're pundits. They're focused on keeping your eyeballs. Read knowledge sources so you can learn about things like, Amazon's leasing hundreds of thousands of square feet in the fashion district in New York. They must be making a move into clothing. And when I saw that, we started repositioning our retail with our tenants that were clothing stores and putting in things like dentists and nail salons and others that maybe didn't seem as good on paper, but they're doing better now. And
the clothing stores are been on the way out
for a long time.
And a lot of the big chains have this year either declared bankruptcy or dissolving completely.
That's right. And some of them may move to online, which doesn't help us as landlords of brick and mortar. And, some of them will do okay. I think the Rosses and the Marshalls and the TJ Maxx, they're doing quite well, but they're still pushing for free rent because that's what, a smart tenant is going to try to do.
That's what you do. And they've read the same playbook that you're talking from, which is, if everybody's running, you might as well, make some money for yourself.
Right. And I do think there are some areas that continue to do very, very well. Dollar stores do very well. You do have to be cautious in that sector because they can move very easily. Everybody wants a dollar store and a landlord will bend over backwards to have them. So you need, if you're buying that dollar store, to make sure you're not overpaying on the rent, meaning the rent you're buying on a pro forma at $25 a foot in a $14 a foot market, that may look good on your return short term, but you need to be able to replace it. And I think people need to think strategically going forward of how can I make sure that I'm adding enough value and that I can replace this rent. And adding value to your tenants, if you're a landlord, if you want to make sure those tenants don't say, well, why would I stay with him? I heard Chuck is a much better landlord. I'm going to go to him. He's helping me a lot more than Jason Mittman is. Sorry, Jason, I'm going to go talk to Chuck. You want to be that landlord that people know about and talk to.
So we got retail, And then how about warehousing?
I think industrial is staying very, very strong. Amazon's presently buying up a bunch of Kmart's and Sears to have last minute. Okay, if they're willing to go to all the effort to reposition and make a Kmart work, yes, it's a big box and has high ceilings. It is not a brand new built building. That means the market's very, very tight. I believe if you're buying warehouse and industrial, you need to make sure you're not buying antiquated. Don't get seduced by the term industrial is hot. Industrial with tall ceilings, dock high doors, good access to highways are hot. Industrial that was built in the 1970s that you can't get the height of a boom of a forklift up, that nobody wants that. Mm-hmm. So, but areas of industrial and warehousing is very strong, I believe.
Apartments.
Everybody needs a place to live. The cap rates are extraordinarily low, but so is interest rate. And if you get a HUD loan, you can lock in for 30 years. Where can you lock in a low interest rate on commercial for 30 or 40 years? It's unheard of. So if your money is at 3% and inflation is 3.85%, the math's pretty easy. That loan, they're paying you 0.85% to take their money because you're beating inflation. So does it have a low cap rate? Absolutely. And you know what? It's stable. The lower the risk, the lower the return. And right now, that should be balanced in your portfolio.
You know, I said this to somebody a long time ago, and I didn't necessarily believe it all the time during the ups and downs of economies. But you know, if you think about it, an apartment building is the equivalent of a national tenant, because people always have a place to live. They're going to pay the rent, whatever that rent is. The national tenant is going to renegotiate the rent in bad times, and you may have to renegotiate rent temporarily with people that are renting an apartment. But you could say you have an income stream for life if you maintain the apartment and you keep it relevant in the economy.
I agree. And think of it this way. You go, oh, I'm only earning 4 or 5%. Really? How much are you earning on that cash in the bank account in a CD or in a money market exactly? I'm pretty sure it's point something percent.
It is 0.0 something, really, probably. But, right. You know, it's going to go, if some economists are correct, it's going to be a negative number. Well, you're going to pay the bank to hold your money for you.
Right, which means your net worth is eroding every day unless you put it in something that maintains and grows.
Yeah.
Like real
estate. All right. So we got apartments, we've got retail, we've got warehousing, self-storage. I have an opinion about that, as you know, but you tell me what your view of self-storage is.
I just don't know enough. If I'm doing self-storage, the first person I'm calling is Chuck Sutherland and saying, can you do a deal with me and partner with me?
Thank you.
I think it's best to just say, I don't know. I can tell you from the tertiary, it seems to be a great market. Automation, from what I've read, is having a big play so you can reduce a lot of your expense and replace it with automation. But I'd ask you, Chuck, what do you think about self-storage?
I think it's a tremendous future. And most of the self-storage in the country is substantially full. Many of the properties that are available are the bottom of the barrel properties because people have bought them up with smart money, before the recession has started. Here's another piece of that, which is very important to remember, is that in a changing economy like we're going into, people move around a lot. Mm-hmm. They got to move to a smaller apartment. They got to move to another apartment. They got to move to find a job, and movement is the source, like mobility of the population is the source of the rental population, I should say, is the source of 75% of the business of self-storage.
Wow.
You move from one location to another, you need a place to store things because it's like digging a hole with a shovel. You dig a hole, you move out of a 700 or 832 square foot apartment, and you move into an 832 square foot apartment, and you move this furniture you had in the last place to the new place, and you have stuff left over. So that's why it's like digging a hole. You dig a hole, dig the dirt out, you put it back in, and you have dirt left over.
Yeah.
Because the density of the dirt is lower when you dig it out. I mean, higher in the ground than it is out of the ground. So it just you can't pack it down enough. Same thing with true with furniture and stuff like that. So I think self-storage is a very strong sector, and the trick there is not to buy a stupid property. A property that is antiquated beyond its ability to produce income, or it's going to be, so you don't have good turns in there. So people, trucks come in, U-Haul trucks come in and clip the corner of your building, tear up your property. So you want to be thinking, how is this property going to endure and be rentable at a high rate over the long term? And a lot of that is in the design of the buildings to begin with. So I believe in the market, and you don't want to make a bad decision going in, because you got to live with that decision for a long time.
Well, if I find self-storage, I'm calling you.
Okay. All right. Let's. I just really have one more question. Really.
We have one more category, Chuck. We have office.
Office. Oh yeah. Well, I'd actually written that one off pretty much. So, yeah. Go ahead and tell me your view of office.
I'm not going to hide quite under my desk. I think some landlords will do well if they can just provide overwhelming value. I do think that the shift in office is so I have a friend, and she runs one of the biggest hospital systems in the country. And she said in the first 3 months of COVID, telemedicine moved more than it had in the prior 10 years. And that telemedicine's not doctors. I don't want telemedicine. I can't do. And I think we're seeing that similar in office. So office will still exist, but that shift, it's happened. You're seeing companies like Shopify saying you don't ever have to come back to work. Twitter, same thing. Gates Belts and Hoses, which is the largest manufacturer of belts and hoses in the world, has shifted where you share an office with someone, and you work Monday, Wednesday, they work Tuesday, Thursday, and between those days they sanitize the office. So they're realizing, I guess we don't need this. I do think people need human interaction. I think, you can't replace that. And the example for me was when I finally went back to Indianapolis for the SEC meeting. Wow, it's like the dam finally burst because you're able to, but it's going to be a different kind of office. And I think it must be a different kind of landlord. Mm-hmm. Are you just saying, okay, pay the rent, here's your space? Or are you bringing in speakers? Are you bringing in accountants to walk them through, how to do, forget the coffee bar. Anybody can go buy a coffee, but can you provide knowledge that helps their business survive and thrive? Are you sanitizing better than your competitor? Are you, all those things? Those office owners, I think, will be okay. And I think the rest, I don't know, maybe convert it into condos. Maybe convert some of the older ones into multi-story self-storage. It's not going to be pretty. Hotel will come. People eventually will travel and want to be in a hotel room. They just have to figure out how to sanitize it. Mm-hmm. I don't know that that's the case with office.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues with office. I can see that. I just was talking to somebody. They said their doctor said they weren't taking appointments anymore in the office. They were going to do entirely 100% telemedicine. So yep. I can get that whole world, and then you get all the places that don't need to be there, and you get, even if you got somebody that wants to rent office space, they're not going to have the same density of employees in that new office space as they did before. They're going to have fewer employees per 1,000 square feet.
In that, Chuck, I've been talking about that. That's really interesting, because when you think, and that applies to retail, applies to restaurant, applies to everything else. So the tenant has a budget, right? So if it's a restaurant, they can spend 10% of their gross revenue on rent, or whatever the other segment is. There's a lot of formulas. And so but if the new law says, sorry, your urinals have to be spread out an extra 3 feet apart, but you still have to have 3 urinals, but now you need to add 20% extra space, or your elevator going forward, it needs to have different coatings on the wall that are antimicrobial, and it needs to be 20% bigger, and your hall, and so somebody has to create more space and at the same time figure out how to not charge more rent.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting way going forward.
Yes.
Last question.
Yeah.
If somebody said, listen, I don't know anything about real estate. I want to start get involved in real estate, and they didn't know anything. What would you like the first two things you would tell them to do?
I think the first thing is you need to find a mentor. And before you go find a mentor, don't ask, I'm going to be politically incorrect. Don't ask stupid questions. Don't go to a mentor and say, how do I get my real estate license and learn? Okay, you can get online and find that out. Ask meaningful, deep questions. And then I would say, learn. So for example, Chuck, how many speakers do you have on the Real Estate Expert Summit?
I think right now we're at 27.
Okay. What are you charging people?
Nothing.
Okay. What would you say the average quality or the average experience or the average net? What are some metrics of your speakers that are coming on?
I'd say the average is that they've been in the real estate sphere, either directly or indirectly, like an architect or an interior designer, probably 20 years, 15 to 20 years minimum. And then that they're probably within the top 10% of people in their industry.
Okay, so in normal times, you can't get that quality of people. I mean, that's to have that for free. So my answer is, and look, I don't have any dog in this fight. There's no benefit to me to promote Chuck Sutherland, other than you're my friend. But if the Real Estate Expert Summit can provide you 20 plus people who are experts at no charge, anything you want of knowledge is there. Mm-hmm. And then a lot more. So take notes, go follow up and ask questions and sign up. And that's the other thing is, if you really want to be successful in real estate, you have to start. So if you want to be successful, go do the Real Estate Expert Summit if you want to learn about real estate. Guess what? If you don't want to learn about real estate, if you do not want to make money, if you just want to sit on your couch and be lazy and go to sleep and not earn money in one of the greatest fields on the planet, do not do the Real Estate Expert Summit. It's only if you actually want to build wealth and build knowledge, right? And get mentors and those other things. That's how they're going to do it. They have to get knowledge. They have to find people, and you have to start. It's sort of like if you said, Jason, I want to go run a 5K. Be great. Have you signed up for one? Well, no. I'm not going to do that. That's crazy. Well, I don't think you're going to run a 5K without signing up for a 5K, Chuck.
Yeah. Sign up and then train.
Right. So if you want to learn from real estate experts, I don't know, there's a great event titled the Real Estate Expert Summit with 26 experts. Sign up and go do it. 27. Excuse me.
So, we do have a way that they can get access to the videos and other materials as well. Right. So, Jason, I think we've run to the end of our time. I really want to thank you for coming on. Pleasure. One of the things I admire a number of things about you, but one of the things I admire is that you do jump into things and learn it and deliver at a high level.
Thank you.
I know you have an interview series that you do, and you deliver at a high level with some of the most amazing guest speakers. Second, you're not afraid to work hard, and you're one of the more creative people in terms of particularly commercial real estate, I know, in the country. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a real honor. I appreciate being here.
All right. So stay tuned for our next hour's speaker. Again, it keeps going and going. Come back and be prepared to learn, just like you were prepared to learn with Jason. All right. We'll see you soon.
Bye. Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you.